this channel and getting to connect with you all and getting to fulfill various diverse requests. But I am particularly excited, extra excited, if you will, about today's video. And that is simply because I love talking about music. I really do. And I really appreciate this request because it's not something that I've thought about doing before. Strangely enough, I'm not really sure why. But I am in a great mood. We've got lots of snow coming down. And it's going to be snowing all weekend. So I am here indoors. And I am going to do my best to work on as many video requests as possible this weekend so that I can schedule them out for my upcoming every Monday schedule. So that is the plan. So as you likely know from clicking this video, we're going to be talking about my record collection. Most of it, I should say. There's a lot, so I narrowed it down just a little bit, just a tiny little bit to feature my absolute favorites. And in that, we're going to be talking a little bit about those artists and, if I've been to the shows, if I have any memories or stories that I can share about those artists or about those songs, then I certainly will. And thank you for those who participated in the poll that I shared yesterday. As I film this now, it was yesterday. And if you don't know, I was asking if you would prefer for me to read through the song titles or to skip reading through the song titles, like trying to get a sense of whether or not that was interesting to folks. And honestly, it was more split than I was expecting, so I am going to do somewhat of a compromise. I'm going to read through some of the song titles, but I don't think we're going to go through all 700 songs. That feels like maybe more than anybody really wants to hear from me, and I get it and I understand. So we're going to do a mix. We're going to do some song titles and we're going to leave it at that. But anyway, to my original earlier point about recording this weekend, I do have some other requests that I will be working on. I'm not sure when everything is going to come out, but I know that we have some requests for some page flipping, more page flipping, but without me talking. So focusing more on the sounds that you would get from like a newspaper, like actual page flipping, and not me and my voice kind of drowning that out, if that makes sense. So we're going to be working on that, as well as a mukbang, another mukbang video that has been requested. So as always, keep sharing what you want to see more of. Feel free to let me know if there are things you don't want to see more of as well. And I think that about covers it. Thank you as always for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being with me on this journey. And if you have not subscribed and you'd like to stay connected to this channel and all of the lovely people here, then please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. But no pressure. Okay, enough of all of that. Let's get into the video. Now, so you are aware of my setup. I have some notes right here, right down below, and I am right next to my MacBook. So that way, I have all of the song titles in front of me, and I don't forget anything, because that would be a tragedy. What I plan to do is, for every artist that I bring up and talk about, I am going to put the album art like up in this area here. I'm going to edit it afterwards, because I thought that would be a lot less clunky than me having like a big stack of records that I'm like awkwardly trying to show off on screen. I just felt like that would be a little bit less relaxing, so we're gonna do some editing to make sure that you can see the album art and hear me talk about it at the same time. is the best way I could describe it. It's like hyper pop, I would say. But again, it's more chaotic than your traditional hyper pop that you might hear. Like, it's not Charlie XCX hyper pop, if that makes sense. But anyway, I really do love this band, and I've seen them 3 or 4 times. I can't quite remember exactly, but quite a few times I've seen them. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So I'm going to go through some of the songs that I would recommend. Again, I'm not saying that everybody is going to like this. And if you've never heard of them and hyper pop is not your jam, I get it. You don't have to listen to any of these songs. But for each of these artists, I do want to give just a handful of songs that I would personally recommend or that I really like. So let's do that. We're going to start with the 1000 Gecs album. So Money Machine is a classic. That's a pretty good one. Stupid Horse is a really good one as well. Big fan of that song. And there's a lot of really good remixes of this album. And actually they have a complete remix album of every single one of these songs, but even outside of that, there are some other good remixes that you can find out there on Spotify or SoundCloud or wherever. Ringtone is another good one. And I think my favorite off this album is Hand Crushed by a Mallet. Hand Crushed by a Mallet. I know the song titles are a little strange, but I don't know. And I really, in particular, like the remix of that song. It features Fall Out Boy and like a million other artists, and it's just good, chaotic fun, and I will leave it there. And moving on to the 10,000 Gecs album. That is the one that came out most recently, and I'm not even gonna lie to you, I was so obsessed with this when it came out, and I still really do like it. I first heard it when I was visiting a relative in Phoenix, Arizona, and it showed up on my release radar one day, and I was aghast because I had been waiting for this album for so long, and it was so unclear as to when it was actually going to come out. And I would go to these shows, and like I said, I've been to 3 or 4 of their shows, and they have been featuring and playing so many of these album songs for so long. And every time I feel like I knew all of the songs because they would play them, but there was no information about when the album would come out. And just constantly I was like, please let this album come out soon. I want it. I know I'm going to want it. I know I'm going to love it. And I did. And so it came out on that vacation, and we just like listened on a loop. And this was one of the one of 2 of the only albums that I ever ordered online. I really like ordering my records, or not ordering, but picking them up in the store. I like the physical act of like going through all of the records and just seeing what I find, but that was one where I was like, I need it right away. I don't want to wait. But yeah, for the most part, I don't do that, and I especially love to support the local shops, go to the record stores. We have so many here in Vermont, so that's what I do. Okay, but going off of some of those songs, Dumbest Girl Alive, that was the first song that I heard off the new album. It was recommended to me, and instantly obsessed. I loved it. I still love it. It is such a good song to me. Again, I know that all of this is completely subjective, and I understand if you judge me harshly because of what I listen to. I'm used to it. I get it a lot, so it's okay. I have a tough skin about it, but I do really love that 757 have different verses on the physical record than they do on the Spotify tracks. Like, the verses are just totally different. So I was like listening to this song on Spotify a lot, and I felt like I knew it, and again, I had heard it live. And when I played the record for the first time and was like singing along, I was like, these are not the words that I know. It was weird, but I thought it was really cool. I appreciated it. I don't know of any other artists, albums, records that do that. But anyway, so yes, 757 is a really good song. Hollywood Baby. Love that song as well. And you know what? If I had to pick one song that was a good entry platter, like a good, here's one song, my point is that Hollywood Baby is a good song for somebody who has never listened to 100 Gecs, who might possibly like a song by them. It's possible you never will. That's okay. But I might recommend that one to just like get a sense of the music, and it might be something you don't totally hate. I also really like $1 Million and Me, Me, Me. There's a song on here that is very much a joke to me, and I don't know, probably the people who wrote it, but it's called I Got My Tooth Removed, and it's just like this saga about getting your tooth removed. And whenever my friends and I go to the dentist, we'll like play that song, and we'll like recite the lyrics from it. It's kind of funny. But anyway, there are some other songs off of the album, but those are my favorites. So, okay, next up we have Alice in Chains, and the album / record. I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. This is my record collection, but they are also albums. Is Dirt, D-I-R-T, and I have loved Alice in Chains for a long time, particularly because it was one of my dad's favorite bands, and so as a kid I heard a lot of Alice in Chains, a lot of other bands too, and we'll get into some of those, but that one particularly resonated with me, and my favorite song off of that album is probably Rooster, because that was my dad's favorite song off the album. And I actually have a rooster on my back, tattooed on my back in honor of my dad. Because if you don't know, he passed away when I was 17, and that was like the one way that I could think to sort of pay homage to him. I mean, there are probably a lot of other ways that I could, but that's the one that made sense to me. And his Chinese zodiac sign was also a rooster, and so many times when I would be driving in my car, driving in his truck, after he had passed away, that song would come on, and it felt like it would come on in the times where I like needed to hear it, if that makes sense. So anyway, I felt like that was the song, that was the message, that's what I wanted tattooed on my body in honor of him, and so it remains one of my favorite songs off the album. But it's not like a lighthearted happy song necessarily. If you know it, then you know that, but it is a good song. I also really like Them Bones and Down in a Hole. Godsmack is pretty good too. It's like that kind of angstier rock music, I would say. It's not metal. It's like grungy rock. I is the best way that I can describe it if you've not heard of them. So yeah, if that appeals to you, then, give it a spin. I obviously have not seen them live. This is a band that was before my time. Like I said, it was more, they were more relevant when my dad was around. Like, that's a band that he would listen to all the time, and I just listened because, well, I didn't really have a choice. in the background, like on a nice summer day where there's a breeze and I'm like, maybe I'm doing chores, but the vibes are good. There's a good energy. I feel like every song on that album has such a good energy. And yeah, I don't know. I really appreciate that type of music. I suppose I would classify it as indie. But it's fairly different. My favorite song off of that album is Brother Sport. Brother Sport, Brother Sport, Brother Sport. But mind you that if you do listen to it, there is a part in the song that is particularly annoying. Like, I'll just be honest. There's like a really long section where there's a very repetitive sound. And usually my friends like will make me turn it off. It's a fairly long song. It's not like it's just, you know, a quick song where most of it is that like really annoying repetition, but you know, you kind of have to be in the mood for that. I also really like Summertime Clothes and My Girls. Actually, if you're wondering to yourself, like, have I ever heard a song by these people? It's possible that you've heard the song My Girls. It was on the radio, I think, a lot back when I was in high school. I'm 29 now, for context, so, you know, this didn't come out yesterday. It's been out for a bit, but there was a point in time where I feel like this was music that was kind of on the radio, at least a little bit. And I feel like that is the song that maybe you've heard. And I've thought about reenacting it here in this video, but I don't think I'm going to. Just because I don't think it's going to sound very good. But anyway, it's a good song, so I do really like Animal Collective, but that is the only album that I have by them. Vinyl, record, whatever you want to call it, and I have yet to see them live. I don't know if I ever will. I would like to, but they are not as frequently like on festival lineups or even in my area, so I don't know how much they're doing in terms of putting out new music. I'd love to see them, but yeah, I'm not sure if I will. Moving on to Arctic Monkeys, AM, which I think is just their most classic album. And I did see the Arctic Monkeys back in 2014. They were, I don't know if they were headlining. I don't know. Were they headlining? They were at a relatively large stage, so they were top billed. I just don't know how high up they were, but that was a really good show. Really loved all of the music. I will say, at this point, I was in college. I was in my freshman year of college, and I saw them live, and it was a massive crowd. Like, a massive crowd. And we were pretty close to the front. Not by the rail, like it wasn't like that, but considering how many people were in that crowd, we were pretty close to the front. I say that because it was extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get out of that crowd. And that was the first time I dealt with any kind of crowd surge in my life, and I think because I was young and inexperienced, I was not scared of it. If that happened to me now, at my ripe old age of 29, I would have been terrified, and actually, I think I would have sensed, like, early on to get out of the crowd, because for situations and have died in those situations. It's really scary. But nobody called attention to it when it was happening. I just wasn't thinking that that's a thing that could happen to somebody. So anyway, I know that now, and nothing ended up happening. Everybody was okay, as far as I know. But yeah, I think about that a lot now, and I constantly think about that when I go to shows. I am not all about being like front and center anymore. If a crowd seems scary in any way, my butt's going to the back or my butt's going to the side so I can easily get out if I need to, because you just don't know, and you can lose control really fast. So anyway, not to take a dark turn there, but it's worth noting, I think. So my favorites off this album, I would say, obviously, Do I Want to Know? And I almost just started singing it again, like I did with the last song. Very good song. Are You Mine? Another good song. I feel like these were playing constantly in their heyday. Like, I heard this stuff on the radio all the time, and people would just eat it up. Let's see, Number One Party Anthem. That's another good one. Oh my gosh. Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High? Another instant classic. Snap Out of It. Knee Socks. Okay. Honestly, like, this is one of those records, and I'm gonna say this about most of the ones that I have, right? Because that's why they're in my collection. But objectively, I can see this as being one of those, like, non-skip albums. Like, I can look at this and objectively say, like, these are very good songs. Of course, not everybody is going to agree with that, but I feel like there are certain albums that even I possess that I'm like, no, there's a lot of songs on here that other people wouldn't like. Like, if I'm thinking about the general population, right? But I don't know, these are all just like, they're feel good, it's good quality music. I don't know. So yeah, I do highly recommend checking them out if you haven't. Okay, good example of an album that I wouldn't consider a non-skip album for the general population is Ashniko. The album is called Demi Devil. I love Ashniko. Okay, I saw her live for the first time a few years ago, pretty recent, and it was a lot of fun. I think she's great, but I think that she also has some music that might not appeal to everybody. Some of it is a bit vulgar, and I'll be the first to admit that those are not my favorite kind of songs. So, you know, I'm much more likely to skip some of the tracks off of this album than I might on others. Obviously, when you're listening to a record, you don't skip songs. But if I were to just like listen through a Spotify playlist, for instance, I'm not going to play all of the songs on that album. Okay, Toxic. Love Toxic. I love Toxic. The song Toxic. I think that's my favorite, hands down, off this album and off all of her albums. Yeah, it felt like a bit of an anthem for me at a time. Like, it just feels empowering to me. So I really like that. Yeah, that's absolutely my favorite off the album. And that's the one that I would recommend. I also really like Invitation by her. Sorry, my cat was crying at the door. I had to let him in. Here he is. Why does he match the mic cover? Why do you match? And now he's gone. So I think that's really all I want to say about Ashniko. I'll just reiterate that she put on a really good show, and I really enjoyed it. Very high energy, which I like. I don't like when a set is just someone like sitting on a stool. I don't have a lot of fun there's a really good, like a dubstep remix album that they put out that I really like, and I listen to that a lot, especially when I'm working out at the gym or anything like that. But this is more, it depends. I think their earlier stuff is a lot more like pop punk hardcore type music, but as they've evolved, it's become more like rock music, I would say. It really depends on the album though, but yeah, I enjoy them. Okay, we're leaving the A's and moving on to the B's. Just like 30 minutes in, but anyway. Okay, so next up we have two albums slash records from Badflower. The first album is called Okay, I'm Sick. Okay, I'm sick. And the second is This Is How the World Ends. I've seen Badflower twice. And I'm trying to remember. For some reason I thought I crowd surfed when I saw them the first time, but I don't think I did. I think those are other artists. It starts to blend after a while. But I love the song Anna off that album. Yeah, that's my favorite off the Okay, I'm Sick album. It's called Anna, but it's written out as X, Anna, X. So it actually spells out Xanax. And it took this was the most recent addition to my collection, I would say. And I used to listen to Crystal Castles back in high school. Like a lot. It was all over my iPod Nano, my little hot pink iPod Nano, and then my black and silver iPod Touch. We evolved from the Nano to the Touch. And my favorite songs at that time and still today remain Vanished, 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 and Crime Wave, Crime Wave, Crime Wave. So those are the tracks off of that album that I would recommend. Some of them get a little nutso, like even for me. And I will tell you, my cats hate this record. They hate it. They do not like the sounds on this record. Whenever I play it, their ears do the like thing. And the last time I played it, one of my cats, he likes staying out in the basement, and it's like whenever a new song would come on and he would hear different sounds, he would run up the stairs and like see what was going on, but in a very concerned way. Like he hated it. And then I felt bad and I turned it off because nobody in the house but me was getting any kind of enjoyment from it. So I don't know how often I'll be playing it, but I have it. Okay, moving on to Childish Gambino, Childish Gambino, Childish Gambino. And this record is called Because the Internet. Because the Internet. I love a lot of Childish Gambino songs and albums / records, but this is actually the only one that I own. I don't know why. Maybe I just haven't seen many of them when I'm kind of like sleuthing through record collections at record stores, but yeah, I would play this album on a loop every time I would drive to my internship during my freshman year of college. I worked for like this marketing and advertising agency. It was my first ever internship, and I just so distinctly remember like the commute, what I was playing, like music-wise, and it was Childish Gambino. It was a lot of Tyler, the Creator. It was a lot of 21 Pilots, Marina and the Diamonds. What else? Those are the ones that immediately come to mind, and I'll be talking more about some of those artists in a bit. But I think my favorite, it's tied. I have two favorites off this album, but there are many tracks that I really like. Tied for number one, I would say, is Crawl and Sweatpants. And I also really like World Star, Dial Up, 3005. I think those are all of my favorites, but again, like, I would listen to the whole thing on a loop. I liked all of it, but those were like the top tracks for me. I've never seen him live. I also have never seen Crystal Castles live, or Power. I forgot to mention that earlier. Okay, moving on. This is a great album, and you cannot convince me otherwise. This is a live album, so just like a recorded concert. And it is Daft Punk's Alive 2007. We're going back to 2007 for this one. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Alive 2007 because it is such a good pump-up album. Whether it is working out at the gym, whether it is you're like taking a long trip and you're like driving and trying to stay awake. This album has helped me in so many times in my life where I needed to stay awake and push through and like hyper focus. This is that album for me. Obviously, I have not seen Daft Punk. They are broken up at this point. I don't know if they'll ever get back together. They might if they need some extra money, but I never had the chance to see them, which is too bad. But Alive 2007 as you would hear in a normal, like, studio recorded album, right? So you can really immerse yourself in the experience of that. It feels like you're there. And the cat is back, as you can see. He is very upset that I am not paying attention to him. But I think he even tolerates Alive 2007. It's a good one. I highly recommend it. And I do enjoy every song on it. It's a non-skip album for me. But if I had to give you just a few to recommend, it would be Touch It Technologic, which you probably have heard the song at some point. It's the one that's like, buy it, use it, break it, fix it, track it, change it, mail, upgrade it. And that's all you're getting from me. I'm not doing anything beyond that, but love that song. Around the World, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Love. One More Time. That's another good one. The one that's like, one more time. But honestly, I like every track off of this album, so. Okay, next up, this one is not going to have album art displayed because it is unfortunately a bit inappropriate for YouTube. I think it certainly crosses the line. If you're deeply upset that I've not shared it, you can go look it up for yourself. Like, maybe it's okay, but I just felt kind of weird about it, so I'm not showing it. But it is Death Grips, and the album is called Money Store, The Money Store, The Money Store, The Money Store. And this is the only one that I have, but I do like other albums and other mixtapes by Death Grips. I've seen Death Grips once, and it was easily one of the scariest shows I've ever been to, which is not surprising. If you hear the title Death Grips, you're not thinking that's gonna be like a fun, peaceful kind of show. And they're a rap group, but it's different. It's not like your typical kind of rap group. I don't know really how to explain it beyond that, but songs off of this album I really like. The Fever, I've seen Footage, Punk Weight is pretty good. Get Got, it's also workout music for me. Like, those are songs that I have on workout playlists, and I really do like my introduction to this group. Back when I was in high school, I was a drummer. In part, I had like many other roles within this sort of like entertainment department, but part of what I did on certain days was I did drumming shows, and we would do like 5 shows a day, and I was the only girl that was like a part of the group. That's just how it ended up. I don't know why. So I was like this young, like, pipsqueak high school girl, and then like all these older guys. And they were always listening to Death Grips and singing it and playing it, or rapping it. It wasn't really singing, but, and I was like, what is this? Like, this is so strange. It's strange from something I've heard before, but it grew on me because I heard it all the time, like in the dressing rooms and stuff. And eventually I picked it up too, and started listening to it, and then went to see one of their shows, which is surprising because they have like this chaotic history of canceling shows and like breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it, but like I said, it felt kind of scary. Like, the audience was a little bit scary. And you get that with certain shows where there's just like a lot of high energy and a lot of like people acting crazy and doing crazy stuff. My friend and I, we stood in the back. We were in the back. I was like, I'm not getting in there. will stay away from any kind of pit. Like, I don't participate in the rowdy, like, crowd stuff for the most part. Sometimes I do. But it's like, I'm mindful of the risks. If it looks like it's getting too out of hand, I step way back. And so that's what I did. I stayed in the back for that show, and I just watched. And I had a lot of fun doing that, and I wouldn't have changed it. So that's what I'll say about that. Okay, moving on to F. We are only at F. This is going to be a long video. Okay, so next up we have Flume. Flume. This is another self-titled album. It's just Flume Deluxe Edition. My favorite track off of this album is easily Holdin' On. Holdin' On. But this is another good, like, played in the background. Ooh, Hyper Paradise, that's another really good one. But that's another good played in the background kind of album. I listen to a lot of Flume to focus. I have a lot of focus playlists, and that's the kind of music that's on it. So it's primarily instrumental. I guess, like, electronic, I think I would say. I've seen them live once, and it was a really great show. I say they, but it's one person. It's like one guy with a laptop and baggy jeans. Like, it was nothing crazy, but the lights, the effects that were used for that show, it was really good. And I would totally see Flume again. And I do like other Flume records, but similarly to others, that's the only one that I have. Okay, moving on to Foster the People. Torches X. Torches X is the name of this album. And it's called Torches X. X meaning 10. X meaning 10. X meaning 10. Funny story for this album. I was a huge Foster the People fan back in high school. I would listen to these tracks all the time. I used to, as a job, I used to pick tobacco when I was young, like 14, 15, 16, before I started like other jobs that didn't pay me under the table. And I would drive to work listening to Foster the People. Like, those were my summer songs. And it was funny because a lot of the time I would take my dad's truck to work, and it was a big Ford F550 dump truck. Massive. And it would be so funny because that's another situation actually where I was the only girl in a group of guys. And I would drive this massive dump truck to work, which would look like cool and impressive. But then, like, sitting in the driver's seat was tiny little me, and I was much blonder at the time. I was like bleach blonde back then, and I would just be blasting music like Foster the People. And it's just really funny. Favorite songs off that album, we've got Helena Beat, Pumped Up Kicks, which is, I think, Pumped Up Kicks is probably the most popular Foster the People song, period. I mean, that was constantly on the radio. Call It What You Want, Don't Stop, Color on the Walls, Houdini. Those are my favorites. A lot of good tracks. This makes me want to listen to it again. Oh, and then I like nearly blacked out and forgot to tell you this story. So during the same time when I was visiting a relative in Phoenix, her and my friends, we also took a trip to San Diego because it was only like a few hours away. And of course, anytime I see a record store, I have to go in. And as I mentioned, I really don't buy albums online for the most part. I like to just see what they have. And this record store that I went to in San Diego had this incredible catalog of music that I had never seen in my life. And I was like, okay, how am I going to pack this and bring it back home with me? Because I don't like to pack a lot when I go on trips, so I just have like a bag, basically, like a small little like side bag. anniversary release, so this was like a special edition, limited edition record. And I was like, ugh, I have to buy it. I literally have to buy it. There were probably 5 other records that I was considering getting, and then I saw this and I was like, this is the one that I'm getting. Like, no questions asked. It's this one. And so after I did, I purchased it, and on the trip home, I literally just carried it with me the whole time. Like, just walking around the airport, holding my little record, sitting on the plane with it. Like, it was like my carry-on. I just was carrying the record around because it didn't fit in my bags, and I was scared about it anyway, getting like messed up. If I just like squished it in something where it didn't really fit. So I just carried it with me and recorded the journey of me bringing torches back home with me. So funny. Okay, I actually, because we're not too far past it, I want to go back to Flume for a second, because there was a story I wanted to tell that I forgot about. Now, back in the day, Flume was like one of my favorite artists. I just listened to it all the time, and there was a point in my life where I really wanted to work in the music industry, like bigly, like very much so. I wanted to work in A&R. I as you know, I love music, and I really wanted to spend more time doing that. I quickly learned, though, that the entertainment industry broadly is not for me. Not for me. I've made some videos about it in the past. There's a lot of personalities that I don't mesh well with, and very quickly after I pivoted to nonprofit work. But anyway, there's this one day where I went to a job fair for Warner Music Group, and this was for an internship. This was back when I was in college, and I forget exactly, but there's like Warner Music Group is like the umbrella, and then there's like different branches for different music labels that are like different genres. That's the best way I can describe it. And there was one that I was interested in, and there were people that I were talking to at the table, and they had signed Flume, among many others, but I knew that they had signed Flume because I liked Flume, and I cared at the time. I don't know. And when I went to talk to these people that were at the table for this label, the first thing they said to me was, "So tell me, who's your favorite artist? And please don't say it's Flume." And I was like, oh God. And from there, they just went on to like talk about how Flume was so overrated and so mainstream, and they were just incredibly pretentious. And I was instantly turned off. It's not that I was offended, but it just like made me feel uncomfortable. And I just want to say that the music industry, music in general, like it's very pretentious. You find that everywhere. You find that at record stores. You find that any place where there's music, right? People get really pretentious about it. And even for me, like, I'm very specific about the things that I like, and I really dig into the things that I like. And so for people who like stuff that's completely different, you know, they might see me as somebody that is like tunnel vision and not necessarily open to other things, which I try to be as open to other things as possible. But just realistically, as a person who listens to music, again, it's like a very subjective thing. You're never going to find an artist or a genre or like a performance that appeals to every single person. And so I think it's really easy to get into that sort of pretentious nature of music. And sometimes it's more obvious than other times. Hi, Vito. Oh my gosh. So anyway, that was a big turn off to me because they were not even trying to hide it in any way. They were just fully like, yeah, if you like Flume, you suck. And again, I really liked Flume at the time. So I was like, this is not going to work for me. And it didn't. My cat is purring so loud. Do you hear him? Hi. Hi, buddy. That either means that he wants a treat or he just threw up. I'm not sure which. But he clearly wants my attention. Okay, so moving moving on from Flume and Foster the People, next up we have Glass Animals, and I have two Glass Animals albums. The first is How to Be a Human Being, and the second is Dreamland, and I love both of them. Big Glass Animals fan. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? So, I've seen Glass Animals. I took a note. Twice. Twice I've seen them. And, really incredible. Both times. Really big fan. And, just to give context, before I explain this moment in time, I want to be really clear that when I go to festivals, I drink a ton of water. I try to eat a balanced, meal. The most I've ever done at a festival is like have a drink or two, like a high noon. And at this point in my life, I'm not drinking at all. But I want to give you that context so you're aware of the fact that I don't do substances, period. And especially not at a festival. I know that's very common, and I'm not shading anybody that does what they want with their bodies. But I'm just saying that because when I explain this, I don't want it to sound like anything other than just me and my obsession with music. Oh my god. He wants a treat. Hello. He's eating my hair because he wants a treat. I might have to edit this out, but also it might be cute. I'm not sure. Are you kidding me? I'm just trying to talk about Glass Animals, Vito. That's all I'm trying to do, buddy. Okay, thank you. Okay, he definitely wants something from me. Okay. So anyway, I was at a festival, and one of my favorite songs, and don't get me wrong, I have a lot of favorite songs off of both of the albums that I have. I'm just a big fan. But at the time, I think my favorite was probably Tokyo Drifting. I was listening to it a lot, and it's a song that features Denzel Curry, who is a rapper. Otherwise, Glass Animals is very much like an indie alternative pop kind of band. But I really liked the infusion of rap in this particular song, and it was just a really fun, high energy song. So sometimes at festivals you get those featured artists, but sometimes you don't. It's actually more common that you don't. So anyway, I am waiting at this point to see whether or not Denzel Curry is going to be featured in this song, and my fingers are crossed. I'm really hoping. We're getting to that point in the lead up of the song where he may or may not come out. And suddenly he runs out on the stage and he just kills it. He does the most amazing job. And when I tell you, I feel like I transcended. It sounds so silly. I literally had goosebumps the entire time. Oh my gosh, it was like I was in a different dimension. And that's why I wanted to say and preface this with the fact that like I don't take substances or anything like that. I was just so into the music. And it was one of my favorite parts of that festival that year. And then shortly after, Denzel Curry did his own set. And obviously I was there. And that show was actually the first time I got into a pit. I'm very careful about how I handle myself in crowds because they just tend to make me a little bit nervous now. But I felt comfortable with that one just because there were a lot of friends around that were both in and around the pit area. So I felt like if something happened, I would be safe and protected. And also, I was observing for a little bit before I actually got into it. And for the most part, from what I've experienced, it's really all about this like sense of camaraderie. Like no one's actually trying to hurt another person. So if somebody falls, like everybody kind of pauses and like they'll help that person up. The intention is not for anybody to get injured or knocked out was a situation that I felt like I could get into, so I did, and I don't know, it was a lot of fun. There is a neighbor that's snow plowing right now. He has like a little handheld snow plower thing, and he's going by right now. So I'm hoping that it's not so loud that it's completely distracting. I thought about waiting, but I don't know how long it's going to be. It's been literally snowing all day long, all day long, all day long. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, so I don't know if there's actually going to be a good time to be filming this, so I'm going to just try to do extra close cupped whispering for the brief moments where he's going by. Okay, so that's Glass Animals, and I'll start by going over the songs that I really like from the first album I have, which is How to Be a Human Being. Life Itself, Youth, The Other Side of Paradise. Those are probably my 3 favorite songs off of that album. I like them all though. I really do. Highly recommend listening to How to Be a Human Being if you haven't. Like I said, it's more like indie alternative pop. I would, yeah, something to that degree. But yeah, you definitely have probably heard Heat Waves. That's a recent newer hit that has been all over the place. I also really like Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. And Tangerine is really good too. But oh my gosh, Tokyo Drifting, that's off that album. I have to mention that again. But there's no songs that I don't like, so there's just ones that I like more than others. Alright, moving our way down. We're only at G. We are only at G. I can't believe that. I am really taking my time here. Okay. Hope you wanted a long video today. Alright, so next we have Gerard Way and the album Hesitant Alien. Hesitant Alien, Hesitant Alien. Now, I have seen My Chemical Romance live, but not Gerard Way as like a single artist, as like an independent artist, separate from My Chemical Romance. But I do really like this album, Hesitant Alien, and I like it more than My Chemical Romance, if I'm being honest with you. So I highly recommend checking that out if you haven't. I really like The Bureau, 00, Juarez, and M.I.A the Psychic. Those are my favorites off of that album, but similarly, with my own biased opinion, I think they're all quite good. Okay, next up we've got two records from Hozier. The first is a self-titled album, so again, it's just Hozier. And then we have his more recent album, which is called Wasteland Baby. And I've seen Hozier twice. And the first time I saw him, I was working a music event, because before I had my revelation of getting out of the entertainment industry, I was in it for a quick little bit. I did some internship work and some freelance work during my college years, and so something really cool that I got to do was work on like a show for new musicians to release their work. And at the time, Hozier was one of those people. Like, he wasn't really a thing yet, and so he was debuting his new song, Take Me to Church. And so I got to be there for the show and also for the rehearsal, which was not the day before or the same day. I think it was the day before. Yeah, it was the day before. And so it was just him going through his songs, and with the handful of staff that were there. And luckily I got to be there. Why, I don't know, but I tagged along, and I was enamored instantly hearing him sing that song. And it was fully like a just filled up the room. It was like a spiritual experience. Another situation where I had just like full body goosebumps. Like I could not believe what I was hearing from this man. And I really liked that song already. But to just hear it in that way where he literally like made the entire venue like vibrate almost because he had such a strong, powerful voice. I mean, it was just amazing. And then it was great when he actually performed with like his band, and it was like with a crowd of people, but it was way more special and intimate to be there for the rehearsal the day before. And there were other artists there too. Elle King was there. Oh my gosh, who else? There were others, but those were the two that I was most excited about, and Hozier being the number one for me. And I found out during an interview that he was doing with the company I was with that his name's actually Andrew. His first name is Andrew. I didn't know that. And he was just so kind and caring and thoughtful, and I hope he's still that way. I kind of get the sense that he is, but you never know. You never really know. So anyway, favorites off of his self-titled album, Take Me to Church, of course. Angel of Small Death and the Codeine Scene. I really love that song. It's like a deep, bluesy, angsty. It's just such a vibrant song. I really love what he does with it. Jackie and Wilson is a classic. In a Week, Sedated, Work Song, Cherry Wine. I'm of all these songs. Listen to that whole album if you haven't. It's like, it makes me feel like I am a fairy in the woods. Like, I don't know what it is. He just does something so special with his music that I don't think you get a lot of times with other artists. At least that's my perspective. Wasteland Baby is also good, but I like the self-titled album significantly more. So off of that one we have Nina Cried Power, Almost, As It Was, Would That I. Those are my tops from that one. Still a very good album. It's still recommended. But the earlier one just has a special place in my heart, I think. Okay, moving on to Justice. This is another live album, and it's called Access All Arenas. Now, this I was lucky enough to see back in high school. Yeah, I was in high school. And I saw the set that was recorded off this album. So I now have this record with the exact same live show experience that I had back in high school. So when I saw this at a record store, I about lost my mind. I was like, I would pay any amount of money to get this. And I mean, I love Justice. And so I saw Justice once before, like I said, back in high school, and I'm seeing them again this year. I think, again, it's just one guy. No, it's two. It's two guys. Yeah, it's been a while. But no, I was obsessed with this show when I was at it. It was so good. Another type of like electronic EDM, maybe not quite EDM, definitely more electronic. And it's possible that you've heard some of these songs as well. Their most popular song is called DANCE, and it goes to the DANCE, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stick to the BEAT, get ready to ignite. You are such a PYT, catching all the lights. Just easy as ABC, that's how we make it right. So anyway, that was a really popular song back when I was in middle school. And I think it was my ringtone for a while too. So deeply obsessed with that song. Really good off that album. I also like Civilization and Canon. Stress is one of my favorite songs. I would play it all the time. Driving around in my little Altima with my friends, and they hated it. They hated that song because it is the definition of yes, it is a very intense song, but one that I just love to death. So, highly recommend that. And then also, Audio Video Disco is another fun one. This is music that is very repetitive, so if that's not your bag, then you probably won't like this. But I love that sort of like repetitious beat because, again, it's great for me to work out to. It's great for me to focus to. I just feel like really in my element when I have that kind of music around me. Not all the time, but when I get into those moods, like I just want to listen to it on a loop, and oftentimes I do. So, highly recommend. Next up, we've got Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon. Man on the Moon. Man on the Moon. Really love this album. My favorites, I would say, are oh my gosh, it's not a competition, it's no contest. It's Pursuit of Happiness, specifically the Steve Aoki remix that was featured in the film Project X, which was one of my favorite movies for a very long time, because that soundtrack is just killer. But yeah, Pursuit of Happiness, Up and Away, close second. Day and Night is a good one too. I love this album. Oh, Cudi Zone. I forgot Cudi Zone's on here. And that song in particular I had on a mixtape that I put on a little CD back when I was in driver's ed. And the man who was like my driver's ed guy would let me bring my mix CDs and put in whatever I wanted. And so we would listen to Cudi Zone all the time. And I still remember that, just being like 16, driving around town, blasting Cudi Zone and some other songs too. But yeah, I love this album. I have not seen Kid Cudi live. I keep forgetting to mention that with some of these artists, I think. But yeah, I have not seen him. I would like to. And actually, he's been putting out some new music recently that I've been liking. So it seems like he's maybe making a comeback. Next up, we've got Lana Del Rey's Born to Die. I have not seen Lana Del Rey, I don't think. I think I was supposed to. And then I got injured and could not go to any festivals last summer. But really good album here. I love Summertime Sadness. I love Born to Die, Blue Jeans, Video Games, National Anthem even. They're kind of like somber. I don't know, I guess pop, but not pop in a traditional sense. I don't quite know how to describe it. It's like emo pop, I don't know. But Video Games, I also had on a mix CD that I would drive around, like with friends listening to, and that was like a very, I don't know, a prominent time of my life. Just like thinking back to what I was listening to during those moments of development. So I always will have a lot of love for that particular record. Okay, moving on to Led Zeppelin's Mothership. Mothership. Do you like it when I do a cupped whisper with one hand or with two? One hand or with two? Two hands or with one or with none? I'm interested to know because I can tell just by speaking that it sounds different. Okay, so Mothership, I feel like historically I've gotten some SHIT for this because it's like a greatest hits album, which I'm aware of. That's why I got it, because there are a lot of Led Zeppelin songs that I like. But a lot of people would kind of be like, oh, you just got like a best of album, like you should have all the albums or like all the records or whatever. And I don't, I just have Mothership, and I actually have a really cool Mothership like collector's like vinyl. I don't even know what to call it. It's like a box set, and there's like tons of cool material in it, and it's like a physical box. It's like this thick, it's massive. And it was on sale for like $75. It was used, so that's why, but I was like, I have to get it. But even before I got the vinyl, I had the Mothership CD that I would play in my car all the time, back when cars had CD players. artist that I listened to a ton as a kid growing up. It was always blasting through the speakers. Like, my mom and dad listened to Led Zeppelin all the time. Obviously, I have not seen Led Zeppelin, though Robert Plant still performs, as far as I know, unless that has changed very recently. And I've come close to seeing Robert Plant, but I haven't. Would be cool, though. Though, of course, it's never going to truly be like a Led Zeppelin experience. That's just not possible. But, yeah, so favorites, Dazed and Confused. I love that song. Just so... let's see. I also really love Black Dog. Black Dog, When the Levee Breaks. When the Levee Breaks. Oh my gosh, there's so much on this album. Kashmir, a classic. Yeah, those are my tops. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Oh, Good Times, Bad Times. I forgot about that one. I also like Communication Breakdown. This is the problem. I'm like, what are the songs I like? And I like so many songs. It's like I'm listing half of the album, but I don't care what anybody says. I know that maybe it's perceived as lazy to just go out and buy the greatest hits record as opposed to like truly collecting all of the music, but for now that's all I have and I'm happy with it, so it is what it is. Okay, we've made it to a very important artist, one that is very near and dear to my heart and will always be, and that is Mac Miller. That is Mac Miller. And I currently possess four of those records. I've got Kids, which stands for Kickin' Incredibly Dope, SHID. And then Watching Movies with the Sound Off, Blue Slide Park, and Best Day Ever. I was surprised that I didn't have Macadelic yet, but that's next on my list to get. Mac Miller has always been one of my favorite artists, and his tragic death struck me in a way that I have not experienced with an artist before. And that happens to everybody, right? Like, we have those artists that we feel like so attached to, and when we lose them, it's really hard. And that was the first time that happened to me, was with Mac Miller. I remember just like hearing the news on my way to work, and I was just on the subway just crying. I was really, really sad. And I've seen Mac Miller four times. The first time I saw him, I was actually 14. And I am so grateful for this experience because my friend found him randomly on some site. This is way before Spotify existed. So maybe it was SoundCloud. It was something similar to SoundCloud. And she's like, do you want to go to this show? It's like happening a few towns over at a place that was like a very small little like underground basement venue. I was like, hell yeah, I'll go. The tickets were so cheap, like less than $20. It was for Mac Miller, and I went to that show and I fell in love, and I was like a Mac Miller super fan ever since. So I've seen him 4 times at least, twice in my sort of hometown area, 2 or 3 times at like large scale festivals. And I love everything about Mac Miller, and I miss him greatly, and I miss his, like, I miss the idea of him making more music greatly as well. But luckily there are many gems. He has so many gems that I listen to regularly. So off of Kids, I really like Get 'Em Up, Nike's on My Feet, The Spins, Knock Knock. That was the first song I heard by him, Knock Knock, and I instantly fell in love. Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, and Back in the Day. Those are my favorites. And then off of Watching Movies with the Sound Off, I love Avian. I love Matches, Red Dot Music, and Aquarium. And I feel like that album just is, I don't know, it's deep to me. It feels really deep when I hear it. Blue Slide Park is such a fun one. I love the track Blue Slide Park. It's one of my favorite Mac Miller Mac Miller songs, period. And then Frick Park Market, Smile Back, My Team. Yeah, those are my favorites off that. And then with Best Day Ever, I would say Get Up, Oy Vey, In the Air, and She Said Is good too. But again, like I said, I have such a special place in my heart for Mac Miller, and I always will, like always, always, always. And yeah, I miss him a lot, and I recommend all of those albums if you haven't heard them. Okay, so as you may notice, it is now nighttime. I did have to take a quick little break, a quick little break. But we're back, and it's all good. And we're gonna continue right where we left off, which is with Mac Miller. So, just in closing, again, to repeat, I will always have a very special place in my heart for him. I miss him terribly. As you know, it's not like I knew him, but you still tend to get these like emotional connections to artists that you really care about, and yeah, so I still play his music all the time, and yeah, don't have his full discography, but one day I will. Okay, now moving on to something that I do feel like I am going to get judged on. I'm not sure how harshly, we'll see. But just to put it into perspective, and I'll say what it is first. Okay, so it is MGK's Tickets to My Downfall album. And for those who don't know, MGK recently did a rebrand from his former name of Machine Gun Kelly. And I feel like people have a lot to say about him just in general, and then his genre switch from rap to pop punk back to rap. And the Tickets to My Downfall album is like a pop punk album. There are rap elements to it, but it's not really what the album is at large, like as a whole. And I don't know, I remember seeing so many people sharing negative thoughts and feelings about the album, but for perspective, this came out during or very close to the hit of the pandemic, and I was not doing good during the pandemic. Let me just tell you that I was not doing good in my little apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Mentally, I was not in a good place, and this was actually the album that, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, it just made me feel a little bit more empowered. It's hard to explain, but it just resonated with me in some way, and it would be a thing that I would listen to a lot, just on a loop, and it just made me feel better, and so it meant a lot to me because of that. And even if I couldn't explain it, I just knew that listening to it made me feel better. So that's what I went with. And I remember this one day in particular, I went to Coney Island, and again, this is like peak pandemic, so I drove my car there, went to Coney Island, brought my speaker, because there was literally no one there. It was also winter, it was cold, it wasn't like a beach hangout day, but I just needed to get out and have some space, and I brought my speaker and just played this album, just danced to it, and just like tried to recenter myself a little bit, which not easy to do during that time for anybody, but it helped. And it resonated so much with me actually that I, at 2 different occasions, drove to Ohio because he still has a cafe in Ohio called the 27 Club. It's in Cleveland, actually a really nice concept, you know what I mean? Like, there are photos of artists featured on the walls, and it's like you just feel it. It's like a big part of the purpose and intention of the space. And really good coffee and alcoholic beverages and good food. There were a lot of vegan options, and I didn't go just for that. I also wanted to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and to do some other sort of like sightseeing things, but I won't lie, that was a big reason for me wanting to go. I just kind of went through that phase. Really strange. But again, it was healing to me. At that time, it was what I needed. So yeah, again, I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. He has a bit of a, like, intense, harsh personality. Sometimes the perception of him is not great. You know, I don't know, but all of that aside, I just really connected to the album. And so my favorite songs off of it, I would say, are Bloody Valentine, All I Know, Lonely, Concert for Aliens, Body Bag. Those are my tops. And okay, as I continue to talk about Machine Gun Kelly, I do also have to shout out the song Lonely in particular, because that song makes me cry. And I've seen him twice live now, and I heard him perform Lonely the second time I saw him, and I literally cried through the whole thing. It's about, it's basically a song about his relationship with his dad and losing his dad. His dad died when he was quite young as well, and a lot of it really hit home to me, and it just made me really emotional because it just reminded me of my own experience as well, and many others, you know. But yeah, like, the whole sort of purpose of the song is him explaining that, like, he feels lonely in a crowded room because the person he wants to talk to isn't there anymore, and it's his dad, and like, he had a complicated relationship with his dad. But yeah, it goes into all of that, and I think it's a really beautiful song. It's a sad song, and very emotional. And yeah, so I think that's also why I have, like, a really soft spot for that album and for him as a person. And yeah, I just wanted to call that out. But I like pretty much every song on the album. Okay, moving on. We have MGMT, MGMT's Oracular Spectacular. I love this album, and so much so that I bought a festival ticket on a whim last year just so I could go see, I think it was like the 10-year anniversary of the album. They were doing a special show in California, and like, without even thinking about it, I bought a ticket, not having any idea who I was going with, how I was getting there, any of the essential logistics that one might consider before making a purchase like that. And as you can imagine, it didn't end up working out, and I sold the ticket, but I really wanted to see them live. But they just recently put out a new album as well, so who knows? Might be possible to see them after all, but I really do like this album quite a bit. And let's see, favorites, I would say definitely Time to Pretend. That is a really good one. Electric Feel, Kids, those two are, oh my gosh, they were all over the radio back in the day. And the Handshake might be my favorite. I have just such visceral memories. I have such visceral memories of listening to that song while I was like walking along the beach and spending time with family in, I want to say middle school. Yeah, middle school. Back again when I had my little iPod and my track phone. That was how I communicated with people, was on a little tiny like track phone. And things were just simpler. And I specifically remember listening to my iPod, taking a walk on the myself blasting the Handshake on repeat, drinking like a little chia seed kombucha juice because I was always nuts about health stuff, I guess, because I was young. And I don't know, just really a really good feeling when I think of that memory. Okay, next we've got M.I.A, and the album Kala, K-A-L-A is how it's spelled. This is the only M.I.A record I have, but there's another one that I definitely want. And I hear a plane going by right now, which is so weird because we don't get planes over here. That's really interesting, and it's like midnight. Sorry, that distracted me. So M.I.A, I love M.I.A, and if you remember earlier when I mentioned I used to drum, and I used to drum several shows a day, and one of the songs that we got to learn that we would perform pretty regularly was Bird Flu by M.I.A, and that was such a fun one because there are so many sounds in that song. If you haven't heard it, it's one of my favorites off the album. But Paper Planes, I mean, that's always gonna be top tier for me. I love Paper Planes still to this day. Boys is a good one. Bamboo Banga is a good one. Oh, $20 is a good one. And Come Around is a good one. I say this about all of them as if I don't like pretty much all of these songs, but those are at the top of the list for me. Okay, moving on to the ends. Next up we have Nirvana's MTV Unplugged in New York. This is a live show recording, and if I'm not mistaken, I think one of, if not his very last live show before he passed away. So I believe I really do think this was in 1994. I'll have to look back and see because I could be off, but it was right around that time. And I've also watched that recording, that special on MTV. I've always loved it. I've always loved Nirvana. I think that was, definitely one of my first favorite bands growing up as a kid that I could say I really love Nirvana. That's another thing that would play in my household with my family. Big grunge fans, my dad especially, and so I loved grunge. I loved alternative grunge, 90s alternative grunge and early 2000s, I would say. And so obviously Nirvana fits the bill, and growing up I had like such an obsession with Kurt Cobain. Like I loved him. And obviously, of course, that is not a show that I ever saw or will ever see, which is sad. That's like one of two shows. Like if I could see any performance, that's one of two. The other one is the White Stripes, which is more likely if they got back together for like a little reunion tour or something like that, but I don't think that's likely to happen. I just think it's more likely than seeing Nirvana, which is quite literally impossible. But I really love that live special. It is impactful and powerful and emotional, and I think just really good overall. I would say, oh my gosh, Lake of Fire. I love that song. That's perhaps my favorite off of this like special record. Something in the Way, Dumb, Come As You Are. Oh, All Apologies as well. But there's just something about Lake of Fire. That one really hits for me. So yeah, big Nirvana fan. Another tragic story, and Kurt Cobain, is featured prominently at the 27 Club. Alright, and just so you know, I'm going through these on Spotify. I put together list in order with all of these albums and all of the song titles. And just so you know, we are at track number 491. 491. That's how many we've gone through so far, and we are only at the O's. But I think we're well over halfway. I think. I hope, because if my camera battery dies again, I think I'm gonna have to do the rest tomorrow. Okay, for our O's, we've got Odesza, 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 and 2 records from Odesza. We've got In Return and A Moment Apart. Love Odesza. If you're not familiar, they are, I guess I would say, electronic. It's like when I'm referencing these electronic groups, though, it's not in the sort of like traditional, like it's kind of music. It's certainly not techno. It's very vibey. It's like along the lines of hippie sabotage. It's hard for me to describe, but again, very good focus music to me. I just love having it on in the background. I am most productive when that's the kind of music that I'm listening to. Like if I'm working, reading, if I need noise, sometimes I like to have noise, and it's that kind of music. And so off the In Return album, big fan of Say My Name, Sun Models. Those are my top two favorites. Those have been like favorite songs of mine for a very long time. Flume is good. All We Need. Memories That You Call. And then off of A Moment Apart, Boy, Line of Sight, Across the Room. Oh, Loyal, I would say, are my favorites. Loyal is incredible live. Incredible live. They had an entire drum line come out, like real drums, and they were playing alongside like water and fire and like all of these really cool like stage elements and pyrotechnics and like all the things. And anytime DJs or groups that heavily rely on computer generated sounds, I love when they also incorporate real instruments for a live performance. It just makes it way better in my opinion. And so to have like that entire line of drummers playing, goosebumps. It was a really good performance. And yeah, I would love to see Odesza again. I think this is their last year touring before they take, at the very least, an extended hiatus. I don't know if that means they'll come back to do more shows or not. So that makes me feel like I should really find a way to see them one more time. But if not, I have already seen them twice, so it's okay. But I just love them. Okay, next up we have Oliver Tree, and I have his record that is called Ugly is Beautiful. Ugly is Beautiful, Ugly is Beautiful. Off of this one, I really like 1993, Cash Machine, Miracle Man, Alien Boy, Hurt. I have also seen Oliver Tree. He is wacky. He is wacky. I think he's a great artist. I love his music. His onstage persona is just very different. Some love it, some hate it. I'm impartial, I guess. You just never quite know what to expect with him, but regardless, I do really like the music. I'm just gonna take a quick sip of water. I gulp so loud. Weird. Not actively trying to, but just noticing in this very quiet room how loud that was. Okay. On to the P's. We've got absolutely loved this album. And I would sing it, like every word to every song with all my friends. We really, really loved Panic at the Disco. How many times have I seen Panic at the Disco? I think twice. I don't think more than twice. Yeah. And Brendan Urie is really talented, like just incredibly talented. So definitely has impressive vocal chops. And off of this album, I love Nails for Breakfast, Tax for Snacks. But it's better if you do. Build God, Then We'll Talk. That's high up there, as well as There's a Good Reason These Tables Are Numbered, Honey. You just haven't figured it out yet. Really long song titles, I know. And of course, the classic, I Write Sins, Not Tragedies. And what really impresses me about this album is Brendan Urie was like 17 when he wrote it. He wrote the whole thing. He did that. And I don't know, that always really impressed me. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I guess that's all there is to say about it, but he certainly put on a really good show. Okay, next we have the Raconteurs, and the album Broken Boy Soldiers. Now, if you don't know, this was one of the many Jack White, like, spin-off groups. So it was never just the White Stripes, and in addition to having these various side projects like the Raconteurs and I think Dead Weather is the other one. And then of course he also does like his own independent artistry work where he's just like a solo artist. He's always busy. He's always busy making music in some way. But a lot of people think it's just the White Stripes. It's not. And I remember getting ready in the morning to go to school. Back in late middle school, early high school, I believe. And Steady As She Goes would always be on in the morning because I would put MTV on or VH1 and just listen to like the top 20 countdown or whatever music related thing was on at the time. And that's what I would have on when I got ready before I headed out in the morning, like early morning. And Steady As She Goes was always playing. And I loved it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all there is to say. And so that is very clearly my favorite song off of the album. But they're all good. But that's the only specific memory I have to the album. Next up, we've got Soundgarden and the Super Unknown album. Super Unknown. Another group that I would listen to a lot because my mom and dad really liked Soundgarden. And so that meant that I also liked Soundgarden. But it's true, I really did. I think my favorite here would be The Day I Tried to Live. That's a really beautiful song. Spoon Man, Black Hole Sun. I love Black Hole Sun. And Fell on Black Days. Yeah, really good album. And I think I have the 20th anniversary version of it. Next we've got Taking Back Sunday and the album Louder Now, Louder Now, Louder Now, Louder Now, Louder Now. Let's see, favorites. We've got Make Damn Sure, Liar, It Takes One to Know One, Spin. Those are my favorites. I've seen Taking Back Sunday once, and it was a really good show. Circling back, I have not seen Soundgarden or the Raconteurs. I honestly don't know if Soundgarden still puts on shows, because that's like an early 2000s band. Like in their heyday, it was early 2000s. Okay. why it's not that good, I'm not sure, but favorites off of this album, of course, Yonkers, big time favorite of mine, Radicals, Sandwiches. Those are my three. Yonkers, Radicals, and Sandwiches. My gosh, I used to listen to Tyler, the Creator, so much. As I mentioned earlier, another thing that I would sort of just loop when I was driving to my internship, but even my early high school years, I listened to a lot of Tyler, the Creator, Odd Future, like all that stuff. And if you don't know, that's like hip-hop and rap. I'm sorry if this is kind of scattered. I feel like sometimes I remember to say what the kind of music is, and sometimes I don't. But he puts out music still. It's a lot slower than it used to be. And for me, I like, again, the more like high energy, dancey, fun kind of tracks. So I like his earlier stuff a lot more than the newer stuff, which is a little bit softer and slower. It's still wonderful and beautiful in its own right. But in terms of a live show, I prefer the high energy stuff. And I've seen both. And I just had a better time when I could jump up and down a whole bunch. But everybody's different. Okay, next we've got 21 Pilots. 21 Pilots, 21 Pilots. We've got two records from 21 Pilots. The first is Blurry Face, and the second is Vessel. Now, I had such a big obsession with 21 Pilots in high school and my early college years because that music resonated with me so deeply. I felt like the messages, the lyrics, the music itself was really deep and emotional. I could relate to it. It was all about, like the narrative was always about an individual struggling with their mental health and just trying to like see the best in things and heal and grow and evolve into a better, healthier person, where they could just like get over that challenging hurdle at that point in life. And it felt so artistic and just meaningful. And I don't know if I've just aged out of that band or if over time progressively it became a little bit less about that. I'm not sure, but for me, the earlier stuff really hit home and the newer stuff doesn't. And that's unfortunate, but that happens, you know, like artists will evolve and change in their own way, and sometimes you love that direction and sometimes you don't. And you know, for the people who don't enjoy it, there is plenty of people who do. So you know, that's just a part of it. But it is a shame because I really did love going to those shows. I think I saw 21 Pilots 4 times. All pretty big venues, I would say, like festivals or large stages, like arena type business. So off of Blurry Face, I really love Heavy Dirty Soul. Ride was my ringtone for the longest time. My friends got so annoyed with me. They were like, oh my god, enough of that song. Polarize, a big favorite. Message Man and Goner. And I love, I love the message behind many of these songs, and Goner is like, oh my gosh, just like put a stake in me. It's just very emotional song, and just music that meant a lot to me. Vessel, same thing, and Vessel even more so because that was an earlier record than Blurry Face was. And there was another record, I think it was an untitled record that was never put on Spotify. It was never produced like in mass, like to the masses. But I would listen to it on YouTube and SoundCloud and like random places where I could find it. And was a song called Ruby, which is my favorite 21 Pilots song. But unfortunately, it did not live to see the light of day like these other songs did. And off of Vessel, Ode to Sleep, Holding On to You, Migraine, Car Radio, Semi-Automatic, Guns for Hands. I like the entire album, like start to finish. Oh, and for a while, I had this on and off ukulele phase where I would try to learn House of Gold, which is a song where Tyler Joseph, the lead singer, plays ukulele, and he does that for some of his songs, but House of Gold is particularly easy to learn. It's only a few chords, and so whenever I would practice with that song. Alright, y'all, we're getting down there. We are almost done. If you have made it this far, then thank you so much for sticking with me, because I know this is a long one. I've literally had to take a break. Okay. Next up, we've got the White Stripes, and the record is Elephant, the deluxe version. Off of this, big fan of, obviously, Seven Nation Army, as well as Black Math. There's No Home for You Here, The Hardest Button to Button, The Air Near My Fingers, and Hypnotize. Those are the ones. And back when I was learning to play the drums for the audition for the job that I had, I thought a lot about Meg White, because she was such an easy drummer to learn from. I feel like White Stripes songs are not difficult to learn, especially the drums. No offense to Meg, she's talented for sure, but not the most complicated. Not the most complicated beats coming from her. But I would watch a lot of White Stripes videos, and that was like my entryway into the space. And aside from all of that, I've always loved the White Stripes. Again, as a child, I heard it all the time, and have followed Jack White on many of his artistic journeys. Would love a reunion tour. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna still keep asking the universe to provide it for me. We'll see, you never know. And then last but not least, we've got the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. 2 records from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. The first is It's Blitz, and the second is Fever to Tell. And you can't tell, but I am wearing a Yeah Yeahs shirt, for this video. And you just cannot tell at all. So that is a little bit pointless, but no worries. You can know that it is here with us in spirit and also in reality. So, if someone ever asked me in my lifetime, up until this point, like, what are your top artists? It's always been the White Stripes and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, consistently across time. Because otherwise it changes. Like, I have a lot of favorite artists, but it depends on my mood. It depends on, like, a variety of factors, and it evolves over time. But consistently, I've always loved the White Stripes, and I've always loved the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. And I have seen the Yeah Yeah Yeahs twice. The first time I was in high school. Yes, high school. And the first time I saw Karen O come out on stage, I started crying. I was so happy to be at that show. And I saw her a second time. It was oh my gosh, hold on, I'm lying. I've seen them 3 times. And it was recent too that I saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs for the 3rd time. Guess I just like blacked out on that. But yeah, so across various albums I have seen them perform, and I think she puts on a great show. She has a very unique voice, and that's what I love about the music, but the music also really good to me. So off of Its Blitz, we've got Zero, Heads Will Roll, Dull Life, Runaway. Those are my favorites off of Its Blitz. Heads Will Roll, I mean, that is I feel like I already said this about another song, but this song is also my anthem. And back in the days, when I would go out more, like when I was living in Brooklyn and I had a bunch of friends who liked to go out to bars and drink and all of that, I can't tell you, like, I could be ready to go home, exhausted, tired, not feeling it anymore. Heads Will Roll would come on, specifically the remix, the Steve Aoki remix, again featured in the Project X movie soundtrack. Now, as a new person, that song came on, I was ready to stay up all night, I was ready to rally, I was ready to do a shot of Jägermeister. That song was an injection of serotonin, dopamine. What are the other neurotransmitters? There are other ones. You get the picture, okay? That song gives me life. It still does. But I much less frequently find myself in a bar, going out, doing all of that. But yeah, long-time favorite. Love Heads Will Roll. And then off of Fever to Tell, I would say Pin. No. Maps is a classic. It's actually not one of my favorites, but I have to mention it. Shake It. Countdown. I love Countdown. Story about Maps, though. Back when I was working in a restaurant, I was a hostess, and I had like this huge crush on one of the busboys. I feel like I've worked a lot of jobs as I'm going through this video. And I had this like huge crush on the busboy, and he was in a band, and can you guess what instrument he played? It was the drums. Of course it was the drums. I heard that he was a drummer and I was like, oh, hello. And he invited me to one of his house shows to see his band, and I was like, for sure, I'm there. And I was like, you should play Maps by the Yeah, because we had been having a conversation about the band, and I think it was playing, like it played over the speakers at the restaurant at one point, and so it came up, and I was like, you should play Maps. And he's like, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. And when we were at like this house show, he yelled to the crowd and was like, all right, does anybody have any requests? And then he looked at me and I was like, yes, Maps by the Yeah. And then they played it and I melted. Needless to say, we have come to go our separate ways, but we are still loosely friends, I would say. We just kind of fell out of it. We were a thing and then we weren't a thing, which is just how it goes at that age. It was between like late high school, early college, mid-college, somewhere around there. So anyway, I think that's it. All 691 songs off of this playlist. I know I didn't read all 691 songs, but we've already been here a long time. I just felt like that would take an extra, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes, I'm not sure. But yes, so I think I wrote down here that yes, we covered a total of 45 records from my collection, and roughly throughout those artists, the span of those artists, I've been to about 40 shows, because again, some of it's a little blurry. I'm like, was it 2? Was it 3? I don't know. But roughly 40 concerts across those 45 records. 45 artists and records, whatever. So yeah, let me know preferences with me. If you have recommendations, that's something I would really love. Give me your recommendations in the chat below. I have sort of like a diverse, eclectic mix. I think it's a lot of like rock and alternative and some pop and indie, hip-hop, electronic, rap. So yeah, I mean any of those things. And even not, like if you have a song that you really, really love and you want me to listen to it, send it to me. I am always trying to evolve and grow in the things that I like to listen to. And this is obviously just a small sampling of what I listen to, right? But the collection is growing ever so slowly. Records are expensive.